Hello and welcome to another episode of the Good and Plenty podcast. My name is Rob Doster. Jeff Goodman is currently trapped in an airport, and since I am such a great friend and such a wonderful human being, I am recording this for him on my computer. He is on a cell phone. Jeff, why don't you tell people where you are?
So very kind of you to do this, Robert. I am in a corner in the Raleigh-Durham airport here. My flight was delayed a little bit, so instead of banging out the podcast when I get home, I figured I would reach out to you and we get it done now. And plenty to talk about. I got about 3-4 hours of sleep after the non-Zion Williamson show last night, and again, plenty to talk about today. But first, subscribe for all of you to the Good and Plenty podcast every Tuesday and Thursday. We have editions of it, and you can subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, iTunes, Stitcher. You can find me at CLNS Media. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. You can also find me on WatchStadium.com. All right, let's get to it, Rob.
Today's episode of Good and Plenty is powered by BetOnline.ag. Go to clnsmedia.com/win and use the promo code CLNS50 to receive 50% cash back on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag. Go to clnsmedia.com/win and use the promo code CLNS50 to receive 50% cash back on your first deposit.
Rob Doster of NBC Sports, and you watched it from home. I watched it courtside. What was your thought?
Humble brag, no big deal.
Zion,
I'm that important.
Well, no. Yeah, and I was right. I actually had a really good seat last night. I was surprised. They put me right in the middle. It couldn't have been better. First of all, let me say, like, the pregame was not like nothing I had ever seen for a Duke Carolina game because Obama came. And it was insane to see how many people were focused on just getting a picture of Barack Obama. Like every media person was in the corner just waiting for him. I guess he came through. They took him in the back, and I actually have a picture of kind of the snack assortment that they gave him in a special room at Cameron. And I wonder if Ken Griffey Jr. was wondering why he didn't get the same assortment. He was just stuck in the stands like a regular dude, looking at his phone the entire game. I don't think he watched more than like 5 minutes of the game. Once Zion checked out, Ken Griffey Jr. checked out.
Poor Ken Griffey Jr., man. If this was 20 years ago, Ken Griffey Jr. would have been the one getting all that attention.
I was so excited when I saw Ken Griffey Jr., maybe my favorite baseball player of all time. And, again, completely overshadowed by Obama, by Spike Lee, by a little bit of everybody. Even Gerald Henderson, I think, got more attention than poor Ken Griffey Jr. Anyway, so Zion leaves.
Let me ask you about the Obama thing, though. With all the with all of the Secret Service that was there and everything, like, how did they? There's no extra space in that building when it gets filled up. So, like, where did they put all the Secret Service guys? Did they have, like, random Secret Service operatives in the student section? Like, I swear there was a picture on TV of C.L. Brown from The Athletic, and you know how he's, like, always decked out in his suits and always looks good. I swear it looked like he had an earpiece in. I don't know if he's actually working for The Athletic or if this was all just a cover for when they knew Obama was going to end up going to Cameron. I don't know what it was, but I swear you got to keep an eye on that CL.
I don't know where all those dudes were, but again, they put Obama in a good spot, kind of under the basket, pretty much on the aisle, so he can get in and out as easy as you possibly can at Cameron, which is not easy. I mean, it is. I had a buddy of mine go last night for the first time, and he was sitting way up. He was like 6 rows from the top, and he was like, "It's a high school gym." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I forget that. I've been enough times that you walk in, and the atmosphere is like no other. I mean, it is by far the best atmosphere in college basketball. Like, I think Kansas is close, but then I'd go for a Carolina Duke game, and the students are the difference at Duke. And you can say what you want about them. They're dorks, whatever. But they are the difference. Just the chance before the game even gets going. I love the video montage at Fog Allen. And, again, that place is much bigger, but you're still on top of the fans are still on top of you as players. But I just feel like there's a different vibe in Durham at Cameron because it is so small, 9,000, whatever it is. and again, Duke Carolina. It was just set up so perfectly last night. And then to have Zion go out 30 seconds into the game, and you know what your story's going to be. And I'm saying to myself, it really doesn't matter what happens in this game now. Like, it really doesn't. And I felt so bad thinking it. And then I kind of wrote it and I tweeted it and everybody killed me for it. But it's true. Like, what did we learn from that game? Okay, we learned that Duke is mediocre without Zion Williamson. Didn't we know that beforehand?
Yeah, it's to me it was a little bit shocking just how much trouble they had. And like, look, I don't think you could pin any of the blame on RJ, and I don't think you can pin any of it on Cam.
No.
Like RJ, he was really that was as well as he's played in a long time last night. And you know,
he took
Cam
too many threes. He settled for too many threes early, Rob. I was talking to his dad after the game. But you're right. Listen, he didn't have much space to work with.
There's nothing you can do because this is the most astonishing stat that I think I've ever seen in a basketball game, right? All of Duke's perimeter players, other than RJ and Cam, do you know what they shot from the floor last night? 1 for 23. Jack White was 0 for 5 from 3. Jack White's missed 25 straight threes. He hasn't made a three since January 12th. Trey Jones, teams don't even guard him anymore. I swear, like I got a screen grab from one play, and I kid you not, Jeff, everybody, 9 players are on one half of the court, right? 9 of them. Trey Jones is all by himself on one side, and it's literally, you can see RJ Barrett catch the ball. He has 2 guys on his left hip, and Trey Jones to his right, all by himself. Nobody within 25 feet of him in any direction. And RJ tries to finish it up and miss the layup because he knows Trey Jones not going to make that shot. Trey Jones is 1 for 11 from the floor last night. That's why there's no space.
And Marquise Bolden is not a threat at all. I mean, listen, it's funny because I was trying to send out, the Wi-Fi sucks at Cameron. So I was trying to send out a tweet early in the first 10 seconds of the game of it's going to be a long night for Luke May because he was guarding Zion. He was matched up against Zion. And by the time I couldn't even get the tweet out, and by the time I could have, Zion was hurt, and instead of guarding Zion, he was checking Marquise Bolden and dominating him. And I'm like, this says it about the whole game is, again, like Luke May, he dominated last night. He had 30 and 15. He torched Javin DeLaurier and Bolden and whoever else they tried to switch on him. It didn't matter. Where if you put Zion with his strength and athleticism, it's a different deal. Like, I honestly think Zion might have made a 32-point switch. Like, I think they might have won by 16 instead of losing by 16 with Zion.
Yeah, and here's the wild thing about it is, like, we know how good he is. Just, I mean, you watch him play and you look at the stats and you see how unguardable he is. But it's shocking when you actually see what they look like without him versus what they look like with him, because he impacts so many things that you don't necessarily pick up. You know, like North Carolina had 62 points in the paint. And look, I think 14 of them came in transition, but still, that's like 50 points, 48 points they got in the paint in half-court settings because they weren't scared about going to the rim. And that's not only is...
Who are you scared of?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, who are you scared of? Nobody. You're scared of Marquise Bolden? You're scared of DeLaurier? No, they don't have... Where with Zion, there's always that fear that, first of all, he's coming from anywhere, right? Like, when you're going up for a layup, you're taking it to the basket, there's always in the back of your mind that fear that I'm going to get blocked by Zion coming out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we saw against Louisville. Like, in the comeback against Louisville, the guards just didn't even bother going in the lane. They would pull up at the foul line because they were like, well, Zion Williamson's in there. I want nothing to do with him. So I'm just going to pass it to RJ Barrett instead. Let him go get a dunk at the other end. That's less embarrassing than being blocked by Zion.
I mean, this is basically going to be the Zion pod. I mean, it really is.
What else are we going to talk about?
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that matters from last night. And a lot of things happened last night. But the biggest question I have now, and the biggest question that anybody probably has right now is, will we see Zion Williamson in a Duke uniform again? Okay, so they come out after the game and they say it's kind of a minor knee injury. They don't know the extent of it yet in terms of how long he'll be out for. But, you know, my guess is it's going to be a few weeks. And let's say it is a few weeks. We're then talking about maybe him back for the ACC tournament. Maybe he doesn't even make it for the ACC tournament. He's ready to come back for the NCAA tournament. The big question is not what Zion wants to do, because obviously we know he wants to play. If he's healthy, you could see it on his face. You could see it the way he plays. He just wants to play ball. He loves it. He's always smiling, always happy. He wants to play ball. And it's funny, Rob, I asked Cam Johnson and Luke May, I was just kind of shooting shit with him after the game. I said to him, I was like, you got to wonder if he even comes back. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, well, you don't know if his parents are going to let him come back. And they looked at me and they're like, yeah, you're kind of right. But players never think about it, right? Players are just thinking about, like, if I'm healthy, I'm playing ball. That's what I do. But it may not ultimately really be Zion's decision at the end of the day. It may be his parents, and it may be some agent telling his parents, you can't play. Like, there's no reason to play. The risk isn't worth the reward at this point, even though we know he wants to play. So, again, like, it's just going to be very interesting over the next few weeks. I assume he's out a couple weeks, let's say. He starts to come back in practice. And then my guess is his parents are going to want to see him in practice. And they're going to want to get their own doctor to consult on this, an independent doctor of Duke, and try to figure out, is it worth it? Is it worth the risk?
I don't want to tell Zion what to do or sound like I'm preaching here, because the big thing is whatever he wants to do, there's no bad option, right? If he decides that, like, look, what's going to make me happy is I'm going to shut it down, or, there's no sense in rushing it back because this is a 4-week injury and there's 5 weeks left in the season, right? If he says that that's what he's going to do, and, he's made his point, he's going to be the number one pick, he's going to be worth like $1 billion for whatever brands want to sponsor him. Yeah. I'm fine with that. If that makes him happy, good. If he decides, like, look, I'm going to be out 3 weeks. This is my last chance to play basketball with these guys. I'm going to try to do what Michael Porter Jr. did last year and come back and compete with them because RJ's my best friend and I really like playing with Trey, and Cam Reddish is my guy, and I want to be able to, try to get Coach his 6th ring. And if that makes him happy, if that's what he wants to do, good. Go do it. I know what's coming from this, and I get it. Like, we're in this industry, so I know that this is what everybody's going to be talking about. And since the whole world is just about opinions, like, this is what it's going to be. And I don't know if this is a hot take or what, but I think what Zion should do is whatever makes him happy. Because here's the truth, Jeff. Here's the
not a hot take. That's not a hot take.
It's not. But here's a
reasonable take.
Here's the honest to God truth.
Reasonable take.
I know, coming from me, it's wild, right? But here's the honest to God truth. There is no injury that Zion could suffer on a basketball court that would keep him from being the number one pick and being able to get enough money where he can change his life and, like, all of the future generations until climate change destroys our planet. He can make that much. Zions. Yeah, all the little Zions will be. They'll have all the money they need based off of the money that he's going to get for being the number one pick and the money that he's going to get for sponsorships and brand stuff and like Instagram whatever's. He's going to make plenty of money no matter what happens. And like there's a famous line from Dave Chappelle. I forget where it is, but he's like. He was just talking about, like, he had like $10 million at one point and went out to dinner. He was like, oh, that guy has $50 million, but we're eating in the same place and we're ordering the same food and we actually got the same steak at this expensive steakhouse. Yeah. And the only difference between the lives that we were living was a small $40 million. And that's kind of what I think is going to, and the point is, at some point, like, all that money in the bank is just going to be money in the bank, right? What is going to be the difference for Zion, like, makes $100 million because, maybe his body wears out earlier than we thought, or makes $1 billion, right? All the people that feed off of the percentages that he gets, they're going to be making more and more and more. So that's what they want. But what's the difference going to be for Zion? So at some point, I think you just kind of have to, if you're him, just go do what makes you happy, man. If playing ball for Duke makes you happy, go do it. And have fun doing it. And go win that title and enjoy it. And the last thing, and this is a serious question, and I really want your answer to it. If you are the GM of the team that has the number one pick, what injury would stop you from drafting Zion? Because for me, I think that he would have to lose his right arm. But I might, it'd
be a leg, first of all. It would have to be a leg, not an arm.
So if he didn't have his right arm, you would still draft him number one? I might do it. I might do it too, man. I might do it too.
No, listen. my big thing with Zion is you just hope he's able to make the decision he wants to make. Mm-hmm. That's it for me. It's like, because otherwise, yeah, he's probably going to have regrets. If they tell him, listen, we know you're healthy, but we really don't want you playing in the NCAA tournament because it is risky for your future. And, you know, you're only 95% back. You're not 100% back. And he's going to have regrets. He's going to have regrets the rest of his life of again, you know, the part of this Duke team that has been fascinating to me is the chemistry. Like, I really thought it would be a problem. I thought it would be an issue because with Zion getting so much attention, I thought R.J. Barrett would be jealous, envious, and might not be a good teammate. And that hasn't happened. In fact, like, you watch R.J. the last month or so, it's been awesome to watch because, like, Zion has a crazy dunk and R.J.'s celebrating it and, like, really celebrating it, showing more emotion when Zion does something great than when he does something great.
There really have been a couple great angles from the back where it's like you see Zion do his windmill, and it's like in the front corner of the screen, you just see RJ like do a little jump and fling his arms and celebrate. It really is fun to watch that.
It's awesome. So, like, that part really would sadden me. You know, as much as it also opens up, and we haven't talked about this yet, but how much does this open up the national title? Like Kentucky fans who are all about, some of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are all about Kentucky. And I had one Carolina fan. He deleted the post, but it was one of those, like, I hope Zion's out for the year, like way worse than even that. It was disgusting. And he deleted it because I retweeted it to everybody. And, you know, when you do that, when you retweet it to everybody and the world can see what a dick you are and how low class you are, he deleted it right away. But yeah, there are some fan bases that are saying to themselves right now, all right, if Zion's out, it gives us a much better chance to win it all. And I think it does change potentially the landscape of the national championship in Minneapolis, because you look at it now, Gonzaga's without Killian Tilly. Even if they get him back, he's not going to be the Killian Tilly that we thought he'd be. Michigan State without Josh Langford and Nick Ward. Even if Nick Ward comes back, it's going to be late, and he's erratic anyway. Like, he's the ultimate enigma. You got no idea what Nick Ward shows up from game to game. So Michigan State, you can kind of throw them out of the equation, to me, to win a national title. Kansas, without Big Doak. He's been out for a while now, but with Doak, Kansas is a national title contender. Without him, no, they're not. You can't see them winning 6 straight games. Forget about Gerald Vick. It's all Doak. So you've got major injuries here that might cost key teams, like top 10 teams. And again, we'd say Gonzaga certainly still has a chance to win 6 straight. They've already shown they could beat Duke without Killian Tilly. So we know they've got that potential. But I would say Kansas and Michigan State, 2 top 10 teams, are out of the equation for me for winning 6 straight. And now without Zion, if they're not with Zion in the NCAA tournament, they don't have them, I think you can put Duke in that class too. I don't see any way they could reel off 6 straight wins without Zion Williamson.
Well, the only way they can do that is if Jack White remembers how to shoot and if Trey Jones finds a way to be any kind of threat on the offensive end of the floor. That's really all it is. Because if Duke's playing 2-on-5, they have no shot. Absolutely no shot. And I have no problem coming out there and saying that, like, definitively. They have no shot. They cannot do it. They lost at home to a North Carolina team that got beat at home by 20 by Louisville. And that North Carolina team went into Cameron Indoor Stadium and whipped up on them in a game that was, like, frankly, it was never even really all that close. So,
all right. So what does this do for you for Carolina? Does it do, like, it did nothing for me other than the fact that it brings their confidence up a little higher, Carolina. But do you now all of a sudden say to yourself, I feel much better about this Carolina team. Now I think they can win 4 or maybe even 6 straight as national title contenders. I like them going into the season. I like them more than most, and I don't know where you stood with them. I've obviously been up and down with them. I think they can go to a Final Four. I absolutely think they can win 4 straight. Now, Kobe White was miserable last night, and that scares me a little bit because he's still, to me, the key to their team. But they won with him being miserable, with them shooting 2 of 20 from 3. They still beat up on a Duke team that does have two top 5 picks on the court. 3 first-rounders, Rob.
Yeah, but look, the truth is they might be better off with those 2 top 5 picks, Trey Jones, and then me and you out there instead of Jack White and Alex O'Connell or Jack White and Marquise Bolden, because at least we'll make shots.
I can't shoot.
At least we'll make shots.
So I would,
and you know what? You might be better around the rim than Marquise Bolden is. You never know.
I think I would. No, I actually think I could protect the rim better than Marquise Bolden.
For North Carolina, what it does for me, I'm not worried about about Kobe White last night. Like, Trey Jones has the ability to completely take people away, especially when we're talking about a freshman that is a little bit turnover prone and streaky and inconsistent as it is. So I'm not worried about Kobe White. Yep. Like, he is what he is. That's part of the job description when you start a player like Kobe White at the point. For me, it's like, is this going to get Luke May going? Because he has not had a very good year, and I think some of it is understandable. You know, last season when he kind of had his breakout year, he was playing with Theo Pinson, who was a natural playmaker, and he was playing with Joel Berry, who wasn't like, he played less of the quote unquote point guard role offensively than Theo did, but he was still a guy that was like willing to make a pass and very much kind of like a floor general. So he had 2 guys on the floor with him that he was able to like have create stuff for him. And that's when he's at his best, when Luke May is at his best. This year, Kobe White is, you know, as good and as talented as he is, he's not a creator. Cam Johnson is like a scorer. Kenny Williams is a 3-and-D guy. You know, Garrison Brooks, like, what's he going to do? So Luke May is having to do all this stuff by himself, and it just has been difficult for him to be able to get it going when he's not like, he needs somebody to create for him. He's not going to go create for himself. So I'm just wondering if is this going to be the game that kind of gets him back in his rhythm? Because if he ends up being the Luke May for the rest of the year, if he's the Luke May that he was last night, the Luke May that he was last season, then I think that does change what North Carolina's ceiling is. But beyond that, like, they just took advantage of a situation. You know, give them credit. They went out there, they made their shots. They kicked Duke's ass in Cameron Indoor Stadium. So you got to give them credit for that, but it doesn't change what my outlook is for this North Carolina team. But I tell you what, this might put them in the running to get a 1 seed.
One more break to tell you today's show is brought to you by The Athletic. If you haven't heard about The Athletic by now, you must be living under a rock. These guys have been crushing every element of sports coverage imaginable. Whether you're looking for specific local coverage with beat guys, sports discussed under a national lens, or anything and everything in between, make sure you take a look at The Athletic. No pop-ups, no ads, just high-quality content waiting behind every single click. Zach Harper, Frank Isola, Sam Amick, who is a guest in the show, Shams Charania, also a guest. They've got you covered in everything NBA-related. If college hoops is more your style, then make sure you check out my guys Seth Davis, Dane O'Neill, Brian Hamilton. You can't get content like this anywhere else. 600 to 750 new articles a week. Who else is pushing out quality content like this? If you haven't signed up yet, take advantage of this deal because it's not going to last forever. Go to theathletic.com/Goodman. Get 40% off your monthly subscription. That's a subscription for less than $3 a month just by going to theathletic.com/Goodman. Shams, Amick, Harper, Seth Davis, Dane O'Neill, Brian Hamilton, all for less than $3 a month. Sign me up. Sign yourself up too. Athletic.com/Goodman.
You think though, are you with me that Carolina can win 4 straight? And they can get through the Final Four?
I mean, with the way that they can score, then I think if they get hot, they can go out there and they can run with anybody. And you know, Cam Johnson he's kind of like, but the thing is, the thing that worries me about him is he's a little bit of he's kind of a front runner, right? Like, when North Carolina's out there and they're scoring and they're in a rhythm,
he looks great.
Yeah, when they're up 15, like, he looks great. But I just wonder what happens when they're in a tight game and they really need a bucket from him on a big possession. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying that I want to see him do it.
How about Nasir Little plays 10 minutes? Okay, yeah, a highly touted freshman who's had an up and down season, coming off the bench all year. You know, was arguably right there with R.J. Barrett and Zion. Some people had him ranked probably ahead of Zion coming out of high school. And I'm watching him last night on one defensive possession, and he looks like a chicken with his head cut off. He's just running around in circles. He has no idea who he's supposed to guard, where he's supposed to be. And at that moment, I looked at him. You know, I looked at Roy, and I'm like, I get it now. I get it. He can't play him. He just can't play him, and it's sad. But really, if I'm advising Nasir Little for the betterment of that kid and his future, pull a Harrison Barnes. I know he won't, but pull a Harrison Barnes and come back for your sophomore year, because you are going to be in the G League all of next year. And for your future and your maturity, and, you know, it worked for Harrison. I mean, it did, and I think it would work for him. And I don't think he'd be exposed. Like, a lot of people would be like, well, you got to go now. He's still going to be a top 10 pick. All right, so even if he slips, even if he goes 18 next year, again, I think the extra year in college of being able to play and get his confidence back, where I'm not sure he ever gets that confidence. Where's he going to get it? He's going to get sitting on the bench in the NBA? Maybe he'll get it in the G League. But I don't know. I think that kid needs to come back. But, again, I don't think he will.
You're right. He has absolutely no idea what he's doing, which is a problem because he's put in a situation where, he's one of these guys that is a quintessential tweener. Like what we would have called a tweener 10 years ago. Today, in the modern NBA, he's what we call versatile or positionless, right? So it's a good thing once he gets to the NBA because he's this guy that can switch and, guard people that are smaller and guard people that are bigger, and he's 6'7", and he has that 7'2" wingspan, and, he can attack closeouts a little bit, but he just, one, he doesn't know what he's doing yet, and two, he plays in a system that doesn't have that kind of versatility in it, right? Like Roy Williams, you are either a big, a wing, or a point guard. There's no in between. And if you're a wing, you either got to be Theo Pinson and a great passer, or Justin Jackson, just like a knockdown scorer, shooter, Cam Johnson kind of player, right? Nasir Little's not that. But he's also not like Isaiah Hicks or Kennedy Meeks or even like a Luke Mayer or Garrison Brooks. Like, he's not a big guy. So he's kind of stuck in this spot where he doesn't have a position in the offense and the system that Roy Williams wants to run. So that's a problem too. I also think that he is a little bit overrated in terms of what he can do. I think that people kind of like hopped on the bandwagon because like how good he looked in some of those like the All-Star games, like the McDonald's game and the Jordan Brand game and the practices and everything. And like I kind of feel like he got all that hype because he just played harder than everybody in those All-Star games. It wasn't necessarily because he was more talented, but if you go out and you're more physically gifted and tougher and stronger than a lot of people, which Nasir is, and you go play harder than them in those all-star settings, you're going to shine. Like Sheck Diallo did the same thing, right? Wasn't he like the MVP in the Jordan Brand game? So I think that probably played a little bit of a role in kind of building the hype up a little bit too. Like I still think that he's going to end up being a top 10 pick, and I think that he fits better in the NBA today than he does at North Carolina. Like, he really should not have gone to North Carolina with what his skill set is. That was just, I don't know who was advising him there, who thought that was a good idea. That was just the wrong fit. I think
remember, he was probably going to go to Arizona or Miami before the whole FBI thing broke.
Arizona would have worked. He fits exactly in that mold of like a Stanley Johnson, Rondé Hollis Jefferson kind of guy. That would have made sense. Even Miami would have made sense too.
Yeah. I was there that week, and you're right. You're spot on in the fact that he played harder than everybody. It was an up and down game, so he didn't have to think defensively. It didn't matter. And that's the hardest part when a lot of these coaches are evaluating players based off AAU basketball and even high school basketball. First of all, in high school, they're often going against teams that don't even have another Division I player. So they're so much better than everybody else on the court, it doesn't matter. But in AAU, it's just up and down. So they can't really evaluate sometimes a kid's IQ and how he can pick things up when you're running a system. And that's what you see defensively. He's having trouble. Guys go at their different pace, and I think he just needs more time to learn kind of how to play basketball, how to play in a system, and the understanding of it. So, all right, what else do we want to hit on before we, I know we said it's just going to be a Zion, Carolina Duke, but let's give at least 5 minutes to a couple more topics. I would say Nevada, to me, last night, losing to San Diego State, a San Diego State team that has really been down for the last year and 3/4 since Brian Dutcher took over for Steve Fisher. They end up beating Nevada kind of going away last night. Nevada never puts any pressure on them. I saw Nevada 3 times early in person, and I walked away fairly unimpressed. And they really haven't played anybody at a high caliber all season long. And I like the Martin twins, and I like Jordan Caroline. and they're older. I don't know. I came away unimpressed. That's all I can say is, like, they didn't do anything for me where I was like, all right, this is a Final Four team. Now, again, things have changed. It'll depend on matchups. They'll still get they'll probably fall to what, the four line now?
Somewhere around there, 4 or 5. They haven't even played a quad one game at this point in the season. Not a single one.
Amazing. I know. They're hard to get a feel for. They're really hard. And again, as much as I like Caleb and Cody Martin, I think we overrated this Nevada team a bit, especially with so many new pieces coming in. And, like, Trey Porter's been up and down, and Jordan Brown, the McDonald's All-American, plays sporadically. It doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. And Jazz Johnson, can shoot it as a transfer. I don't know. I don't have any confidence in this Nevada team. I don't. Like, I think they could go out in the first round, and maybe they could get through the first weekend and make things interesting. But to me, if you're ranking teams that you have confidence in, and we should have done this for this week, like a confidence meter of some of these teams. To me right now, who's the team you're most confident in? Like, who? I picked Kentucky to win it all in the preseason. And you know what? I'm feeling pretty good about that pick again right now, especially with Zion being hurt. Like, I think Kentucky might be the favorite or one of the favorites come March.
Well, the team that I was most confident in is now missing. It has a 285-pound hole in their roster. Yeah. So, honestly, and you're going to laugh at me when I say this, and everybody that's listening to this is going to laugh at me when I say this, but the team that I am most confident in is Virginia. And look, yeah, I understand they got to prove it to us, man. They got to prove it to us. Yep. But the way that they can switch up and down the lineup now, that they can go big with Jack Salt and Diakite in there, or go small where they have Braxton Key, DeAndre Hunter, and one of their big guys. I think that they are running a much more modern offense this year. Not to get too into the X's and O's weeds, but normally what they've done is in recent years is run this. It's called a blocker mover offense, where they have 2 bigs that basically just rotate through, setting screens for the 3 guards as they kind of run off of them. And they've gotten rid of that, and they run a lot more of what's called a ball screen continuity, which is basically just the way that you move. You keep ending up with getting Ty Jerome, Kyle Guy, and DeAndre Hunter in ball screens with 3 shooters on the opposite side of the floor, and it's just. That is a lot more effective with the players that they have. And look, I think that Ty Jerome is
ultimately, Rob, it's that they have more offensive options.
Yes,
right?
They do.
They just have more scoring options right now.
And I think that Ty Jerome is an absolute killer. I don't know.
He is a killer.
I don't know if there are 5 players in college basketball that I want taking a big shot. And I'm not just talking about a game-winning shot. I'm talking about the other team just went on a 6-0 run. We are only up 1. We're on the road. We need a bucket. The crowd's getting into us. There's 5 minutes left. This is one of the biggest possessions of the game. I want the ball in his hands. I want him to go make a play because he is that tough dude. He looks like such a nerd, but that dude will kill you and rip your throat out and then hit the big shot on you and then let your entire fan base know about it as he runs back down the floor.
Have you ever seen Ty Jerome smile? Seriously.
I don't think I have. No, that's not true. That's not true.
Smiles.
You know what? Last year when they won the ACC tournament, I can't remember what I asked him, but I asked him a question. I think I was making a question, and I made fun of Kyle Guy, and that definitely got a smile on his face. But on a court, there's
never.
He's not satisfied by anything, dude. He is so tough.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah,
I think. How long do you think he plays in the NBA?
12 years. 12 years.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think, and again, and I think he's that guy that's going to surprise people in the NBA and be more than just a guy who sits at the end of the bench. I think he's going to find a way to get an opportunity and actually make an impact for a team.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, again, they've got 3 guys. I think all 3 of them play in the NBA. I do. I think Kyle Guy plays in the NBA. The quickest release, he can shoot the shit out of it. He needs to get stronger.
Did you see he had a tip dunk the other day? He had a tip dunk.
I didn't see it.
It was on a fast break off of a rebound. The ball came off the backboard, off the front of the rim. He caught it with two hands, dunked it, and he did a pull up on the rim. He didn't get a tech, but he got. I think they didn't give it to him because they're like, "Oh, Kyle Guy dunked it. We can't tee up Kyle Guy when he finally got a dunk." 5 years into his college career, he finally got a dunk.
It's amazing. It's amazing to me. I think Virginia, I think Gonzaga, like my top three right now. And again, this is obviously dependent on Zion, but Tennessee never was in my top three. Never, no matter what they did at that point. I know Bones played much better this year than he had the past, couple, but I still think for me right now, it's in whatever order I want to throw them in: Kentucky, Gonzaga, Virginia. Those are my top three teams going to the NCAA tournament if Zion's health is in question.
I'm 100% with you on that. I would have I would have Tennessee in that mix as well, just because they have the makeup of all of these teams that we've seen win in recent years, right? They have all these old guys that have been together for a couple years. They don't necessarily have any NBA stars on their roster, but they have 2 or 3 guys that are going to end up getting drafted and have a professional basketball career getting NBA paychecks. I think that they are switchable and versatile. And honestly, I think that matchup with Kentucky is probably the worst possible matchup they can have, except for maybe Duke, because the way that Grant Williams is effective is by using his strength and using angles and using the leverage because he has a low center of gravity and doing all of those things. And he got put up against Reed Travis, who is
and PJ.
Yeah,
and PJ Washington. Both of them. Two brutal matchups for him.
Yes, brutal matchups. Reed Travis, he could go right now to the Patriots and replace Gronk, and he would end up being an all-pro tight end. That is how strong he is, how much leverage he has, and Grant Williams ain't moving him. So that was the matchup.
Did I tell you my Reed Travis? Did I tell you my Reed Travis story from a few years ago?
No, I want to hear it though.
Awesome story. So I'm out there doing sideline for Stanford SMU. It was like Larry Brown's first game. He was suspended a few years ago, so he didn't coach. Remember, suspended for 8-9 games for the academic fraud or whatever it was. So they send me out there, and it was me, Doris Burke, and might have been Roxy Bernstein. I'm not sure who the play-by-play guy was. So Reed Travis and Michael Humphrey, 2 guys on Stanford, were former football quarterbacks. So my idea was, let's get him out there throwing. Day of the game, let's get him out there throwing and get some video, and we'll show it during the game and whatnot. And let's have some fun while we're out there. So my idea was, let's get Doris Burke out there catching a touchdown over Reed Travis. And most kids, and Reed was a sophomore at the time, I think. Most kids would be like, come on, I don't want to do this. You're putting me in a position where I'm going to look like an idiot here, and somebody's catching a touchdown over me. And most kids just wouldn't have gone for it. Reed was all in, made himself look like an idiot and went the wrong way defending Doris Burke. Doris catches the ball and spikes it, and Reed's just laughing. And I'm like, this is a kid who just gets it. And just a cool little nugget story. And again, I think Reed Travis not only has had an impact on the court with Kentucky, but I think, again, some of the leadership, some of the intangibles, and he's out now for a couple of weeks with a knee injury. And it'll be interesting to see, does Kentucky take a hit? I mean, they've got E.J. Montgomery, Nick Richards. If there's somebody they could afford to lose, at least for the short term, it probably is Reed Travis, because they've got guys who can step in and do some of the same things that he does.
So I have a theory on that. So I think that, to me, for Kentucky to hit their ceiling, they need Nick Richards to be good enough to start taking some minutes from Reed Travis. I don't think that they need Nick to start over Reed, because I think Reed has been he's been good at what he does, but Nick Richards is more the prototype John Calipari big man than Reed Travis. And at this point, we kind of know how good Kentucky is, and they've gotten their mojo back, and they're awesome again, and Reed is only going to miss 2 weeks, but this is 3 or 4 games where Nick Richards can kind of go out there and Cal can say, look, you got to figure it out, man, because we need you. So if he can go out there and figure it out, and you end up getting Nick Richards for 20 minutes being the dude that we all want him to be in terms of a shot blocker and a vertical spacer and just this 7-foot athlete that he is, then I think that could end up making a difference for him if he takes advantage of this time that he has to play. If not, then it could just end up being a disaster and cost them the SEC regular season title, and Nick Richards still can't figure it out by the time Reed Travis gets back. But this is the chance for him to prove it. And I think that is, I don't want to say it's a good thing, but I think that there are some silver linings with this injury that could help Kentucky in the long term.
All right, well, I'm headed out. I had this flight delayed. I'm going to get back on to get home now after a pretty cool trip. The trip was, how about this? So I don't know if you listened to the last podcast I did, but I flew down and surprised my parents for their anniversary. They're in Jupiter, Florida for like 3 months, and I surprised them. So I fly in. I had to fly in Sunday night. I was going to fly in Monday morning, but the weather, it was snow, and I saw the forecast, and I was only going to be there for like a day and a half. So I flew in Sunday night, got in late, stayed at a Marriott Courtyard that's right across the street. I didn't even plan it this way, from Roger Dean Stadium, where the Marlins and the Cardinals practice. Get up in the morning, take an Uber over there. The Uber, and my wife kind of set it up too, where she called my parents in the morning, said I was busy doing some work, but wished them a happy anniversary, make sure that they were going to be home at that time. And she said, yeah, your dad's probably coming home at about 11. He's playing an old man softball game. My dad's like 76. And so the Uber pulls up. And then the Uber driver's like, oh, man, I think your dad's pulling up right next to you. So he looks over at me and literally looks at me. And then he looks at me again. And he's like, what the hell? Like the ultimate double take of like, is this really you? And then we walked in the house and my mom went crazy. So like, if there's ever anything, like, to me, it was so worth it. It was so worth it just to see the look on their face. And I'm an only child, so unfortunately they didn't have another one that was, an upgrade. They had to deal with just me.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I had you as a son, then I would not be having a second one either.
Well, but maybe you would, just because that the bar's set low, and you need somebody that's productive, a productive member of the family.
What did Tim say about you on the last podcast? Tell your parents that we all. He had a great one-liner as he signed off. I can't remember what it is now.
Yeah, I don't either. But I was too captivated by Tim's comments, and then the fact that he goes out there and lays an egg, losing by 20.
That was bad.
But yeah, so anyway, my advice to anybody listening to this is like that type of moment. Those are the moments that I'll remember forever. Like, my parents are getting older, and I think they'll remember that forever. And it was very cool. It was something that sometimes, you look at it as the season's going on, whatever you're doing work-wise, when it kind of gets you where you're just running and you're not thinking about family. But again, it was something that I'm so glad I did, and it was able to get those couple days. And you look back on it at the end of the year, and you're like, all right, what did I miss? I didn't miss anything. Yeah, I missed a couple of games that I could have watched on TV or whatever, but it was so worth it. Now I'm headed home, and I'm going to sit in my couch on Saturday, I think, and watch a bunch of games again. And then we got to figure out. I got to figure out where I'm going for conference tournaments. But listen, Rob, I appreciate you kind of coming in here and rescuing me while I'm stuck at Raleigh-Durham Airport, and taking control of the pod a little bit. And for everybody, obviously, subscribe to the pod. We know that every Tuesday and Thursday, Good and Plenty. You can subscribe wherever you listen to your pods, iTunes, Stitcher. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. You can find me at watchstadium.com, CLNS Media. And thanks again for joining us, Rob. Thanks for pinch hitting.
Thanks for having me on, Jeffrey.
Hey, sports fans. I'm Coach Nick of the B-Ball Breakdown podcast on the CLNS Media Network. I break down the NBA from a coach's perspective and have some of the best basketball minds join me weekly to discuss the latest NBA news and what's truly going on the court. Subscribe to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or find us on clnsmedia.com. It's a great conversation. You in?